Coming up, Spaceship Earth's refurbishment has been officially paused, characters are coming to the waters of the animal kingdom, and virtual queues may not be used when Walt Disney World reopens, maybe not even at Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. How's that going to work? All that and more on the way. This is Mickey Views News.
All who come to this happy place, welcome.
Now I'm the king of the swingers.
That's what EPCOT is, an experimental prototype community that will always be in a state of becoming.
Hello everyone, Brayden here. Boy, has it been a wild last 48 hours of news from Disney. First, we heard Not So Scary was canceled and that the Food and Wine Festival is returning to EPCOT in just a few weeks, the earliest it's ever started, which we covered in a video on Friday. Then yesterday, we covered all the details related to the new reservation system for Walt Disney World, where you have to reserve your park entry before you actually go to the park, what's happening with annual pass holders, people with hotel reservations, people with tickets. And now that we've gotten all that procedural info out of the way, we can start talking about the fun stuff, of course, which is what's coming to Walt Disney World in the future. Disney released an attractions update on the Disney Parks blog, which included confirmation of a rumor we've been hearing throughout the lockdown, with Disney saying, quote, "Time travelers, take note that the iconic Spaceship Earth attraction at EPCOT will also continue to be available in its current state while we pause on its planned refurbishment." Now, there's a lot of ways you can interpret this. Does that mean the Spaceship Earth Our Shared Story refurbishment is canceled? Does it mean Disney's saying it's not canceled, like it's just being pushed back and we're going to do it later this year? I think all we can definitively take from Disney's official statement here is that they're saying the refurbishment is not on right now, it's on pause, but whether or not it happens, I think remains to be seen. But according to our sources familiar with the matter, we should, keyword should, see demolition get underway on the load and unload / post-show building behind Spaceship Earth later this year. I know this goes against what a lot of other insiders have been claiming all year, that if we do get a refurbishment, it's going to be a quick projection update and a new ending, and that's going to be about it. Like basically they budget cut down the project. I dispute that just on the most basic level, which is this ride layout I shared with you earlier this year, showing you the new building Disney featured at the D23 Expo and what it will look like on the inside with the new load and unload track. The entire purpose of this project of refurbishing Spaceship Earth was to make that new building with the newly expanded load and unload track. So cutting that out effectively means the project has no merit. The updates to the story with the projection effects and the new ending, that was to coincide with this large-scale update to the physical attraction layout, the physical attraction with the loading and unloading of the attraction, where in the future when you exit the attraction, you are going to feed out of it into Dreamer's Point, where you're going to have the Walt statue. That is a huge part of this overhaul. It's one of the central purposes of this EPCOT spine project Disney's been planning for years, where their plan is to reimagine everything from the front gates through to the port of entry inside of EPCOT. To my knowledge, that full Spaceship Earth upgrade is still a possibility. My hesitance here is in the fact that with Disney having so dramatically cut capital expenditures for the time being at the parks, it's hard to say what will make it out and what won't, what will make it out the other end. But Spaceship Earth and the new Harmonious Nighttime Spectacular, those are the central focuses of this EPCOT overhaul project, so I think we will see them continue to get the budgets they require. And if Spaceship Earth does end up just getting the projection and it just keeps the current building, we'll have Harmonious to blame for it, because we've been hearing all year how that new show has just been single-handedly eating up all the funding in sight when it comes to EPCOT. What's not essential and what I don't think is likely to happen is that elevated garden festival building thing. If anything, I think we could see that whole area by Club Cool just become a flat area with food booths and things like that for the time being, just for now. I guess I'll have to wait and see what Disney does there. I could be completely wrong in my predictions here. Just take it with a grain of salt. As always, everything is on such shaky ground right now. Anything could change in a millisecond, but I just thought you'd like to hear what I've been hearing with all of that. Right now, my expectation is for us to see Spaceship Earth close for refurbishment later this year and demolition get underway. But if 2020 has taught me anything, it's don't have expectations expectations. So we'll see what happens there. And a quick addendum on the EPCOT entrance promenade that's in front of Spaceship Earth. Right now, it's just sitting there incomplete. But as we see work wrap up actively right now on the new entrances at the Magic Kingdom and the Animal Kingdom, which Disney's had crews working on the last few weeks, we've been hearing from several people that the plan might be to take those crews and then they'll jump over to EPCOT and drop in those iconic EPCOT prisms at the fountain. So keep a very close eye on that. I've been dreaming of seeing those prisms in real life in that fountain in front of Spaceship Earth for so long. I'm so excited to see that. Also yesterday, we got a list of every attraction that is reopening with the parks, but more importantly, Blog Mickey compiled a list of what's not reopening with the parks, which I think we can glean more off of. The attractions that aren't opening with their respective parks, you'll notice all have one of a few characteristics. One, they're interactive, like it's guests touching things. Those obviously aren't happening for now. Two, they're things you can't social distance very well, like meet and greets. Or three, they're things that require paying entertainment cast members. Things like Voyage of the Little Mermaid, perhaps. And also, there should be another option, which is Stitch. Stitch is in its own category of crazy. As we've seen the inside of that attraction demolished, and also the Wreck-It Ralph stuff that was supposed to go inside of the attraction does look to no longer be the case. It does look to be canceled. It's likely not going to have anything in it for the 50th anniversary at this point. It is a very challenging space to work with in that those theaters are so small, but I think there's so much you could do in such a small space. It doesn't have to be something big. You just have to have a good story. You just have to put on a show that's entertaining or interesting or something like that. So I'm sure the Imagineers have some good ideas there, and it's just a matter of Disney funding them. And the one to watch here, I would say, is the Voyage of the Little Mermaid. Going into the closure of the parks back in March, there were rumors that Voyage of the Little Mermaid in Hollywood Studios may never reopen. Perhaps we'll be getting a new show there. I haven't heard anything from sources or anything to confirm any of that, so I just say it's up in the air right now, the fate of Voyage of the Little Mermaid. But keep a lookout for if any insiders or anyone says anything about that, because that is definitely one to watch right now. Keep an eye on that one. Continuing with the information Disney dropped yesterday, while saying parades will not be happening for the time being as part of Disney's social distancing measures, they did say they will have, quote, special cavalcades down the Magic Kingdom parade route and friends sailing the waterways of Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park to processions along the World Showcase Promenade at EPCOT and motorcades on Disney's Hollywood Studios Hollywood Boulevard. Each area will come to life throughout the day. Friends sailing the waterways of the Animal Kingdom? That sounds pretty cool. I joked on Twitter, Disney saying no parades, but we will have character cavalcade processionals, which is basically the same thing. So I guess what Disney's saying is there's going to be no normal scheduled parades with a line of floats like the Festival of Fantasy Parade in the Magic Kingdom. There's not going to be an exact time slot where people all crowd together along the pathways, but there will be impromptu visits of characters as they move down the parade routes in all the various parks, which in my opinion sounds almost better than a parade. What's better than a normal parade? One you weren't expecting, right? It's all those little extras that I really think make Disney special and keep people coming back. It's not just the stuff that people plan out months in advance. I think little things like this, like stuff you encounter, like people on the waterways in the Animal Kingdom, or people going around the World Showcase. I've never seen that. Back in the day we used to have Tapestry of Nations, but I never actually got to see that in person. So I'm very excited to see what Disney does there. The big news we just got, this one isn't something from the Disney Parks blog. Scott Gustin on Twitter is reporting cast members have been told there will be no virtual queues when the parks reopen, even for Rise of the Resistance. Whether this will be the case is still not completely known. Public Relations hasn't published anything official to that effect. But if Disney does go this direction, which I believe they are, I have spoken to cast members who do have some knowledge of this situation, Disney will be going against what a lot of the other theme parks are doing right now in saying no virtual queues. I have an idea as to why Disney is doing this. The thing with virtual queues is, while they're good for the guest experience when you're actually there in the park, you can just say, oh, I want to go on Rise of the Resistance. You don't have to wait in line. You can wait for your notification and then get right on. What it creates is a lot of people that are not in the attraction's queues. This is by design. The theory is instead of waiting in line, you'll be out buying food and merchandise. It's the whole reason FastPass was made. But in this low park capacity social distancing situation that we find ourselves in, having guests not in the queues at the attractions and instead milling around outside, it theoretically lowers how many guests Disney can admit to the various parks because there's less space to social distance guests. If Disney has normal standby lines, which Disney will be utilizing both the Fast FastPass Plus line and the regular standby line 4, with everyone spaced 6 feet apart, it may not seem like much, but that'll considerably increase how many guests are in an attraction at any given time, each individual attraction's capacity. And because each attraction is eating up more guests, with more guests in the queues, that means less guests outside, which means Disney can let in more guests while maintaining proper social distancing. So I think that's a smart operational idea in some respects, with a possible benefit to us guests, and there perhaps being more availability for getting reservations at the parks at any given time. The reason I say it's only smart in some respects is this theory works best when you assume that each attraction is eating up a bunch of guests, around the same amount of guests, and they're all waiting in queues, but we know that is not the case. Rise of the Resistance in Hollywood Studios, if it doesn't have a virtual queue, it is destined to have an enormous line of socially distanced guests snaking around Hollywood Studios. The really scary one is, imagine that Seven Dwarfs Mine Train queue that sometimes extends in normal times to Storybook Circus. Now imagine that, but with 6 feet between every guest, between every party. Now that line will stretch all the way into Tomorrowland, if that's what they're doing there. I think we could have a situation where you have different cross-secting lines for different attractions actually running into each other. There are definitely some issues on just how much real estate Disney has in places like the Magic Kingdom. We're doing standby queues for everything that are spaced out 6 feet apart between each guest. Will demand a lot from the guests themselves in terms of how they're spaced and just the infrastructure in general, which is not built to handle that. But given Disney has gotten rid of FastPass for the time being, now you'll have close to double the queuing space at most attractions, and they'll likely load faster because FastPass is why the standby line usually moves so slow. So what that is to say is, perhaps when you consider we'll have double the standby queuing space at most of these big e-ticket attractions, everyone spaced 6 feet apart, the lines could move pretty quick and actually work really well. Ever since I was a kid, I've had people tell me about their trips to Disney as a kid and how pre-FastPass the lines at rides would move so much faster. And finally, we may actually get the chance to see what that's like and collect some wait time data, and then hopefully when we get out of this situation and FastPass Plus comes back, that we can compare and see if that was really the case. I wish Disney would just do away with the current FastPass system entirely. Right now, they're not going to be doing it in Walt Disney World. I hope they just don't bring back the current FastPass Plus system, and instead, maybe Disney could implement something like the Max Pass they have out in Disneyland, where the behavior is like when you used to have the paper tickets, where you have a FastPass, you use it, and then you get another, but it's all digital. It's all right there on your phone. That would be awesome, but I know with Walt Disney World, a lot of guests like to do planning super far out, and that's why Disney does it that way, because people do plan their once every few year family vacation, whereas in Disneyland, it's a lot of pass holders just showing up, day to day. So maybe I'm a little biased on this question and would just like to see everything, be right at my fingertips when I show up at the park, whereas a lot of families that spend a lot of money to be there and plan out like a year in advance or even longer what they're going to be doing. They like having that peace of mind and knowing we're going to do this and this and this. Although the only thing I feel with reserving everything so far out is oftentimes when you have a schedule, it does lead to a lot of conflict. I feel like a lot of the conflict you see in Walt Disney World has something to do with that, having an expectation of, okay, we're going to do this and then this and then this, and then one thing kind of messes up, the monorail stops on the beam for 30 minutes and then the whole schedule is thrown off, and then people are very stressed out. So there is something to be said, definitely, even for people who spent a lot to be there and like to plan everything out, to have a level of spontaneity to their vacation at Walt Disney World. There's a lot happening right now. Be sure to subscribe with those notifications on to keep up to date on all the latest developments as we find out more about Disney's plans for some of the biggest projects happening in the parks. You kind of wonder what's happening with the Star Wars Hotel. What about the pits in the middle of EPCOT? All I can say is I've got some very exciting stuff on the way for you guys insofar as tracking all of these projects and their current status is concerned. More on that soon. Thank you so much for watching. From the Mickey Views Magic Studio, this is Brayden. Have a magical day.